Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order. This is City Council meeting of May the 19th. And I'll give the invocation, then join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the American and the Texas flag. Our Father, we're grateful that you've given us another day to come and serve our community, and we pray that you would give us the direction and the patience and the knowledge to make decisions that would move this community forward. And again, we're thankful, and we want to remember in prayer those that are providing first-line response to the coronavirus, the doctors, the nurses, the first responders, all that are involved, our local folks that are keeping their businesses open, and we pray that you would continue to guide them as we move back to opening our state. Help us to be thoughtful of others and the way we conduct ourselves, and yet at the same time continue to move our community and our state back to full production. Guide us now as we go through this city council meeting that the decisions we make will be in the best interest of our community. These things we ask in your name, amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Mr. Manager, I know we have to take low bid, but is that just the nature of the program that we're doing where you hear it and here and you hear your echo back here?
He was there somewhere checking this out. So.
All right. Well, anyway, I don't mean to be critical, but but yeah, I guess I do for the money we're paying. Anyway, Mrs. City Secretary Rebecca Huerta, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mayor Joe McComb.
Here.
Council members Roland Barrera.
Here.
Rudy Garza.
Here.
Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Gil Hernandez.
Here.
Michael Hunter.
Here.
Ben Molina.
Present.
Everett Roy.
Present.
Greg Smith.
Here.
City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Here.
City Attorney Miles Risley.
Here.
Mayor and Council, a quorum of the council and the required charter officers are present to conduct the meeting.
All right. Before we get to the city manager's comments, what we haven't been having lately, and not that they haven't been out there, but that we haven't been having our presentations and proclamations here at the city council. And I thought, just so you know that we haven't abandoned that, we are still providing them to for different events and different folks. Just want to go over a few of them that we've done just recently. And this was a proclamation for the Gold Star was first used during the World War I when American families displayed flags with them, gold stars outside their homes, businesses, and schools and churches for loved ones who were lost in military service. And May 20th, or May the 12th, excuse me, is Navy Gold Star Awareness Month. So we didn't want to forget the Gold Star. We hear about the Gold Star mothers, and I think, matter of fact, on the hill right here from uptown to downtown, there's the Gold Star location. It has a memorial there and a flagpole and this sort of thing. So we want to remember that. For those of you that are excited about getting out on your boats with the good weather we have, we want to remind you that May the 16th through the 22nd is Safe Boating Week. And we had the Coast Guard folks here today, and we gave them the proclamation, and want to remind everybody to stay safe. We don't need to compound your problem with coronavirus and a boat accident. So behave yourself and be safe, enjoy the outdoors, and come back. And then we wanted to wish a farewell to Captain Jason Smith, who is the Coast Guard Sector Commander, who was leaving Corpus Christi, been a great guy. He got here just about the time, I think, to start getting the building open, and then had Hurricane Harvey. So he's had quite an experience in his case, and he's leaving with Corona. But he's going to Houston because he said he wanted to stay in Texas, and so that's where he's going to be going and doing that. So we want to wish him well and gave him a proclamation. And then Emergency Medical Services Week, May 17 through 23rd, pretty appropriate. for our emergency medical folks who perform service for us on a daily basis, and we appreciate their work, and so there's a proclamation that was presented to them. And then the folks that do a lot of the work that don't get much recognition, we want to take time just to mention and recognize them, and that's National Public Works Week of May the 17th through the 23rd, and that's the people that keep our streets going, our water lines running, and our wastewater lines running. And we just want to remind everybody that May 17th through the 23rd is National Public Works Week. And then finally, this weekend coming up is the Memorial Day weekend. And we want to remind everyone to the real meaning of what that Memorial Day weekend is about. And we want everybody to be safe and have a good time in what they're doing, but yet at the same time reflect on what Memorial Day is and be thankful for those that gave the ultimate sacrifice for their country. And we want to say thank you but that's going to be this weekend, so we want to remind everybody of that, but be safe. Mr. City Manager, now it's your agenda item, number F, City Manager's report.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor. I have a few things today. It won't take as long, hopefully, as last week, but we do want to keep you updated and the several timely things. Annette, though, will begin by giving the council a full update, or a short update, but one that's comprehensive in terms of our COVID-19. We still continue our press briefings every day at 5, and I know some of you watch them, but for you all again today and for the viewing, listening public, Annette will talk to us about our efforts with COVID-19. I'm going to go over real quick after that the Memorial Day closings and openings. We're going to be closing some things, but some things will open, like swimming pools and so on for Memorial Day weekend. I want to just remind us about our Safe, Fun, Fit initiative that we did not begin last week because of that heavy rain we got Friday into Saturday. But we're going to begin it this Saturday. And then there'll be 3 other presenters just doing quick updates. Cole Park Pier. Keith Selman's going to give us a quick update on that. We're going to begin the public engagement process pretty soon, and we want to make sure the full council's aware. And then Constance will give us a quick update on our LIFT fund, how those loans are being processed and how the money's being allocated. It's a good news report. And then finally, Eddie will give us an update on the budget calendar. I talked to you last week about that every week. Every council meeting, we're going to talk budget somehow with the council. And so today's topic will be the 2021 budget development calendar, and share that with you and see if you're amenable to some of those recommended dates that we had, and then we'll proceed if so. Okay, so we're going to turn it over to Annette Rodriguez, our Public Health Director, who will give us a quick update on COVID-19.
Thank you, Mr. Zanoni. Annette Rodriguez, Health Director for the Health District. So I'm going to start by just kind of reviewing the numbers just quickly. So we're at a total of 242 cases here in Nueces County. If you can see there, it says travel-related 50. The majority are now person-to-person or community transmission. And person-to-person and community transmission are virtually the same. When we started the person-to-person, that was families, homes, and now it's more like in a business and those type environment where they're in close proximity one to another. So you see 131 there. What's really good news item is the recovered. You see almost 100 of the 242 are recovered, so we have 99 recovered. So that's really great. And we do have a probable case, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. Next slide. So the total case is 242, and here's just a graph of it. So we look at when we reopened May 1st and kind of, the trend after. We've been looking at the 14-day incubation period, how we're doing. Some of that, again, comes with businesses that had some issues, and so we need to kind of take some of that out and look at those numbers as well. So you see the graph right there with the 3 deaths. Next slide. So testing for COVID-19 still continues. The health district is currently assisting the fire department. Fire department started yesterday with the nursing home facilities. They're doing a great job, so they all seem like they did really well. Yesterday we did 2 nursing homes, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and everything went smoothly. We were originally sending out the test to be analyzed to Spawn, but Spawn has run out of cartridges now, and so now it's going back to the health district for analyzing those results. Military testing teams are still available. Their number is the 512-883-2400. And so we get the results from them if they're positive, but we do not get negative results from them. We have a lot of individuals calling saying, am I negative? That's not anything that we have at this time. So they can call the military testing teams and see if they can find that. I believe the military testing team actually sends out a text to them when they know the results that they are negative. So, next slide. So there are two kinds of tests that are available, and I think everybody here has heard of these. One is the viral, it's the PCR, what we call the gold standard test, and the second is an antibody test. And the antibody test is a test that we've all heard about for years and years and years. This antibody test, though, they're still developing the antibody test specific for COVID-19. So a lot of the antibody tests that you hear about, if they say we have antibodies, we're positive for antibodies, what does it mean? It just means that they have a coronavirus. So, which means they could have had the flu last year. So a lot of people are positive for antibodies. As the test gets more specific for COVID-19, they will be better and they will be more reliable to actually look at them as a diagnostics. But as for now, it's just kind of an indicator to help you make decisions. So the two categories of case classifications are, one is confirmed, and so we have a PCR positive, so the viral test, that's just clear, it's a positive. So it's a case, we count it. But there's a new one that started last Monday that's called a probable. And so the probable means that your antibody tested positive, and so you have an IgG or an IgM positive, but also the clinician has made the diagnosis saying that you are a probable case. So that's the difference between a case and a probable case. So the other probable definition is that you are antibody test positive, either IgG or IgM, and also you have an epi-link. So there's an epidemiological link, which means you were in contact with a COVID-19 positive case, or you traveled to an area with high infectivity. That could also make it a probable case. So currently we do only have the one probable case in Nueces County. So testing in the nursing homes, I think everybody's also heard that the governor mandated to test all the residents and within 14 days. And so we're going to do our very best to get that done within the 14 days. We do know that our limiting factor right now currently is the nucleic acid, the analyzer for our laboratory at the health district. So they actually have to analyze it, so they need nucleic acid. So we're hoping we'll get through this week. And we're making requests through STAR and as well through the city manager, the county judge, the mayor, everybody that can help us to get the nucleic acid so we don't have to stop the testing and we can continue testing all the nursing homes as mandated. Next slide. An update on the notable cases. So the meat processing plants. People continue to ask us about STX. So 747 employees were tested. We have approximately 65 to 7 positive cases. The reason we put approximately 65 to 70, we have 68 in our case count currently. There may be additional from outside our jurisdiction that we don't have in here. And so we put just a range of around 5, 65 to 70. So these positive cases, they're employees or they're contract workers or they're our vendors. So it's not just the employees, it's a total of anybody that was at the plant those 3 days and requested a test. For halfway homes, we have 19 positive cases in Dismas, and we have 13 positive cases in Avalon, or Civic Care. In the nursing homes, for the 4 different nursing homes that we actually tested, one was actually no positive cases at all, and they all had PCR test. Another one had 1 positive case, but the staff all had antibody tests, and the residents all had PCR tests, and they came out with 1 positive. And then the other 2 had 4 positive cases and 3 positive cases. The good news with the nursing homes is that all of these individuals are asymptomatic. They have all notified their family members. We continue to monitor them. They continue to make sure that they're 14-day quarantine. But they do continue to be asymptomatic. So that's really good news for us.
Very good news.
Next slide. And that concludes the presentation and the update. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Anybody have any questions or comments? All right.
Annette, I guess, in my field now, I guess we're being, since we work with employers, now the private sector is marketing the fact that they'll do tests, and, you know, abundantly for employers. Has there been any coordination? I mean, I know where the numbers that I heard were like $85 for the antibody test and like 140 to 150 for the PCR. So has anyone contacted you? Because I remember in the beginning, we couldn't get enough supplies, we couldn't do this, and now the private sector is looking at this as an opportunity.
And so there are more available tests, you know. Additionally, the FDA has approved through the emergency use authorization additional labs to do some testing, so there are those available. I would caution people on the antibody test still, because there's really only 3 or 4 antibody tests that are really reliant, that have good sensitivity and specificity, which means that they're pretty accurate. The rest of them are just telling you have a coronavirus again. So what they're doing is they're selling the antibody test, and people are taking them, and then they're positive, and then they're turning around and saying, now you need a PCR test
Yeah.
to confirm if you're positive. And so, you know, just caution people that, you know, if you're really wanting the gold standard test, it's the PCR test, and we do that, you know, in our drive-throughs, and military testing's doing those also through their drive-through. I know Coastal Bend was doing those as well. So there are outlets other than just going, you know, to the commercial labs, you know, to your private physician, that you can also look at. We do not have as much tests, the health district or any of these other two, you know, it's not unlimited. We do have limited supplies, and so while they're giving us nursing homes and other directives, you know, that's a good thing, because we need to make sure to assure, you know, that the vulnerable population is safe. And so, but we do expect, as we receive more of the VTM or the viral specimen testing kits, that we will be expected to do more. And so we will be available at that time as we get more to do more. So we're also looking at vaccines down the road. You know, I think everybody heard Moderna actually put something out saying that it looks really good. We're hoping that it continues to look that good, and maybe by the end of the year, probably more like towards the beginning of the year, we'll be doing some type of mass vaccination. So very similar to what we did in H1N1.
Good. And you know, just another thing I might add is that what we've been with the insurance carriers have recognized that this, and that what they're basically doing is they're encouraging people to use the teledoc type of function. So that way, if you have a concern, then, you know, it's just an app on your phone, call your doctor, and that way they can help you run through the process, as to now not, you know, clog up your phone lines, you know. And so anyway, just keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Annette. On the nursing home, so we're getting some positives, and like you said, it's asymptomatic. That's great. But where are we in the nursing home testing? How many nursing homes do we have? What kind of percentage have been tested? So as we're looking at this information of 8 positives, what is that in the nursing home realm here?
So that's a great answer, and Fire Chief might have those numbers. I know we've tested 4, and we tested 2 yesterday, and I believe we have a total of 16.
The best mask I've seen.
You like that?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman. That's a great question. We have completed 2 nursing homes, the fire department has, and as Annette has stated, she had completed a couple of homes, as well as the Texas military has completed a couple. We have 16 total nursing homes within Corpus Christi. One of them happens to be in Robstown. So far, approximately 5 or 6 have been completed, and then we're scheduled to complete the other ones, working through this week and working through next week, depending on the number of testing kits that we have.
And the results, so the physical tests have been taken, sometimes there's a lag in the results. So as I look at this, so we've had 5 to 6 tested. How much have we had the results? So the 8 positives, how many tests does that represent?
So the ones we tested yesterday morning, all of the results were negative. So
okay.
the ones yesterday afternoon, there was 200 that actually
So we're
were
testing
scheduled.
them here with the quick
Yes.
turnaround, as opposed to going up to Austin with that 3 to
Right.
4 day.
Right.
turnaround.
So we started, I think 69 of them were done by SPAWN, and then the difference for yesterday mornings were done by the health district. Okay. So, and then the ones from yesterday afternoon, the 200 will all be done by the health district.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone in the cloud that want to say anything back there, the conference room? I guess not. Can they hear me back there?
We're good.
Yeah, they should be able to hear you.
Can you hear me back there?
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
We're good.
All right. Is Michael, are you online, Michael?
Yes, sir. I'm good.
You got any question? No?
No, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, the results you're giving us on the nursing homes to me, is outstanding. Because that seems to be the hot spots that everybody's talking about, and we have, so far, knock on wood, really that's a great response. And so I think that's a compliment to the nursing homes that have probably got early aggressive in trying to what they're doing. I know I'm very much aware of some very, very sad situations where totally unrelated to the coronavirus issue is that there have been a couple of folks that have passed away that were not able to have family members there at the time, and that's a terrible situation to be in. But and hopefully they can come up with something that will alleviate that situation in the future. But from the numbers that we've been given, that's a great report. I mean, that can change in the twinkling of an eye, but right now it's a great report. And speaking of great reports in the media, and everybody's always want to know how many positive tests that we have, that seems to be the one that has all the sex appeal. The one that really implies and indicates what your issue is at your community is based on the number of positives that you have versus the number of tests that you've given. And in Corpus Christi, Nueces County right now, the numbers we've got, that's a 3.59 percentage points, which is excellent. I think the state of Texas is 4 to 5. Some of these other states are 10 to 12, maybe 14. I don't know what they are, something around the country, but 3.5 is an excellent number. We'd like for it to be 0. But 3.5 is, to me, is a very good number to have, and we're focusing on those areas that the nursing homes, the meat processing, and so it's very good news for us, I think. So I think we can, if people pay attention to taking care of themselves, doing what we recommend, I think we can ease back into this opening and not have a significant negative impact. Hopefully a very positive impact on the economy. But anyway, well, thank you very much, and keep up the good work. And if we need to get on the phone to get some more test kits, we'll, when we get through with the meeting, let's see where we are. We may be able to make a phone call or two I know we're pulling all the stops that we can, but maybe two calls might have more impact than one. I don't know. But,
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that.
We'll do it. All right.
Okay, good. Thank you, Annette. Mayor, let me just go through some of the Memorial Day openings and closings for you all and for the public. And so garbage and recycling will be collected on Memorial Day. So if your set out day is Monday, go ahead and keep setting it out on Monday. Heavy brush, though, will not be collected at the curbside. The J.C. Elliott Citizen Collection Center will be open on Monday. So if somebody wants to do some spring cleaning or summer cleaning, it's 8 to 5, open on Memorial Day. The landfill also will be open on Monday. That's 8 to 5. Now, city pools is a little bit of a difference compared to last year. Usually we open them all on Memorial Day, but because of COVID, we weren't sure how to staff them in terms of lifeguards. We didn't know if we could even be opening pools this summer. So getting all of our lifeguards on board is going to have a little bit of a lag time. They're heavily recruiting now, but there was a little bit of a delay. So because of that, we have 2 pools that are open now, the Collier and the Natatorium. We're going to be able to open one more on Memorial Day, which is the West Guth pool. That'll open starting Saturday. But the HEB pool at Shelley and Fig and Greenwood pool and the Oso pool will be closed for this weekend. Hopefully soon we'll get them open when we get all the lifeguards trained. So we'll keep you posted on that. But one new thing for the community, and we're gonna do a soft opening here, as you may recall, we approved 3 splash pads in the community. And we're gonna open this weekend, on Saturday, in fact, the splash pad at Lindale Park. Okay, yep, so that'll open up early in the morning. We're trying to just keep it a soft opening. We're not gonna do any major advertisement, with the exception of this council meeting. And we hope the neighbor, there should be a draw just from the neighbors that live close by. It'll give us a chance to test the system, see what type of staffing we need. We're probably gonna try to use some social distancing and only have, not too many people on the splash pad. But our Assistant Director of Parks, Joey Johnson, recently appointed to that position, sent some pictures out on Facebook, and it looks great. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a real nice facility. We're gonna focus on a maintenance plan for those 3, and I've asked the staff to give me that. So what is our maintenance plan? Daily, weekly, monthly, annually, so we can keep them looking fresh. So anyway, that splash pad will be open, and then we have 2 others that are close to being completed, and those will come online for the public to enjoy probably the next week and then the weekend after. So over the next 3 weeks, and then we'll do a grand opening with the council, some type of a ribbon cutting ceremony soon. We'll plan that out. And then still at our pools and the splash pads, we have to do 25% of total capacity, right? So there'll be some limitation. Animal care services will be open Monday if anybody wants to adopt a pet, 8 to 4 at our animal care facilities. And then our public libraries will be closed on Memorial Day for that holiday. Okay, so that's the closures. And let me just go over real quick the Safe Fun Fit. We have a couple of slides we can show as well. So the City of Corpus Christi and VFit, you probably know VFit, Victor Betancourt's nonprofit. We have developed a safe, family-friendly weekly health and fitness program that's designed to be inclusive and free for all residents of Corpus Christi. It's called Safe Fun Fit at the Bayfront, and the program will allow community residents an opportunity to receive necessary tools to stay healthy or get healthier. It will be done by offering fitness classes led by certified fitness instructors. There's going to be a total of 4 classes. And there'll be also a 5th option of a healthy meal planning tips will be done towards the end of the event. The activities will take place most of them will take place at Water's Edge Park, but the road will be closed, the Ocean Drive and a little bit of Shoreline Drive from Cole Park to Water's Edge. So it's going to be a good spot for people to walk, run, bike. The whole event is from 7 to 11 in the morning. And let me see, the closure, so with that lane closure from Cole Park to the end of Shoreline that's already closed, it's 1.25 miles. And so somebody can do that trip 3 times, and that'll be a 5K basically. And the measure is going to allow us to give people that are out there today, I see them just about every day, crammed up on that sidewalk or just not enough room. So this will have us as a community have a nice, wide, expansive outdoor spot, and that bay is really unique. I mean, it's a beautiful spot to walk, run, or jog. So we're thinking that it's gonna take off. We're gonna kind of pilot it over these first 2 Saturdays in May, and then we'll see how it goes, work out the bugs, and then we'll launch it in June officially. So there's those 4 classes. You all should have the schedule. Let me know if anybody wants to attend, if you need me to do anything for you all, and we look forward to having the community out there as well. Okay, so then the next thing is our Cole Park Pier, which is, and Keith's just going to do a quick update on the design of the pier. Right now, we have Jacobs, council approved a contract with Jacobs to design it, and Keith's going to talk to us about where they are and then how we're going to get the public involved on the design of the pier. This is a big thing, and it's going to really improve what we have down there right now.
All right.
For the record, Keith Selman, Assistant City Manager. What will be coming up here in just a second is there we go, a snapshot of the flow chart. We've got a lot of things going on simultaneously on this project. Would like to point out that a year ago we did a survey. The survey was only out for 8 days, a Survey Monkey, 8 days, and it was on our Parks webpage, our City Facebook, and our Parks Facebook, and we had 1,300 respondents in that survey. Very proud of what we accomplished with that survey. The information that we got on that was all good, and we're going to look to replicate that as we get into this public involvement process. It was a process that's tailor-made for COVID-19, because people, it wasn't a public meeting, it was a Survey Monkey. So we're going to replicate a lot of that as we go through. But I want to pick up and outline what we've done and where we are. A couple of things that are going on simultaneously is the renderings. You can see them in red. The renderings at the bottom, and up at the top, the demolition. We had a meeting with the Corps of Engineers on March 3rd, because we've got two different permits that we're going to be dealing with. One would be the construction permit, but before that, we have the demolition permit of the existing pier. And we had a meeting and discussed both of those, and the meetings came out very favorable. They were very good meetings with the Corps of Engineers. You know you get in a good meeting when you don't, when you're not told no. So we had a very good meeting. They were looking forward to getting our submittals on this, both for the demolition and the construction. That's the type of meeting that it was. So on the 24th of March, we did submit the demolition permit. That is still in process. We've not heard back on that, but again, our comments, the comments we received very early on were very favorable. They only asked for minor revisions to that application, so that is moving forward on their part. The renderings we are wrapping up. You see this on the bottom row in the red. And we are wrapping that up. The consultant has put those together, and we're ready now to launch the public involvement process. And we're looking to launch that next week. And we're going to, again, replicate what we did to get those kind of responses to the survey, but we're also going to do some video work, do some on-site work, do some sign work. We're going to get as creative as we can to get as much public comment as we can. We even sometimes in a public meeting, you never get 1,300 response. If you have a one-time public involvement, sometimes you fill the room, sometimes you don't. It's hit and miss. It's a fishing line. What we're looking to do is to actually broaden the net and try to catch as many fish as we can with a net system as opposed to a single line type event. We're pretty excited about some of the things we're going to do. We're going to put together some video and provide opportunity for people to comment post-video, keeping it a real short video. But those are the thoughts going into how we're going to, what we're going to launch next week with our public involvement process. After we get through the public comment process and the public involvement process, you see now it turns into more of a turquoise color on this spreadsheet. That's when we're going to get into the real hard design work. Really get that thing cranked out, and that just takes you through design, bidding, and then construction phase. The demolition phase up at the top, we will likely do that later in the year. We did get a GLO grant for $144,000 to use on either Dimmitt Pier or Cole Park Pier. We're going to move that to the demolition of Cole Park Pier, but we can't spend that money till a little bit later in the year, the end of the summer. So we're going to look to do that demolition, which will work out very well because by then we should have our design complete and we can put a very nice visual on site, probably a nice plywood size sign indicating what will be coming as that demolition is occurring, so that the public will not be startled when they see the demolition occurring. And that's the update.
All right, any comments or questions, Mr. Smith?
Thank you. Thanks. That's a great asset for this community, Mr. Selman, but you mentioned you're sliding money from Dimmitt Pier, so what are we going to be doing about Dimmitt?
No, we're not taking money from Dimmitt Pier. We're going to use the GLO grant that we got to do the demolition.
So Dimmitt's still on track?
Dimmitt is on track,
Okay.
and Dimmitt will be, that's coming out of the bond money.
Okay.
And it's
As long as Dimmitt's on track.
It is on track, design's complete, and we should have that wrapped up by the end of the summer.
Just a long track.
That will be done by the end of the summer.
Mr.
Now, there
Lee?
is some site work on that location, though, that needs additional work, but the pier proper.
Mr. Molina?
Thank you, Mayor. Keith, I really appreciate your hard work, the work that and effort that you and your staff have been putting into this means a lot, and I really appreciate the fact that you're taking the bull by the horns and getting that community engagement, getting the community involved. That's really important. I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and this pier means so much to this community, and I'm looking forward to working closely with you on this moving forward. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments? Anybody from the conference room?
Nope. We're good.
All right. Hello, Rudy. See you. Okay, anything else?
That's it on the Cole Park. So just to conclude with
Thank you.
Councilman Molina's comment, we're going to have several community input events. Given COVID, we can't do the traditional way, but next week's releasing a video and then getting comment will be a good way to start. And then we'll probably do 1 or 2 others. So a total of 3 or so, and then that'll kind of wrap up the community input. We could do something at the park itself. We're looking at that to capture a good cross-section of people to give us input. Okay, now Constance is just going to do a quick update on the LIFT fund, and then we'll just have one other short presentation, and I'll be done the city manager's update.
Good afternoon. For the record, Constance Sanchez, Chief Financial Officer, and I'm very pleased to be providing you with an update on the City of Corpus Christi Small Business Recovery Program, which was made possible through the utilization of Type A funds. As you will see in the presentation, the program has been very successful and has provided the intended relief to small businesses here in Corpus Christi. The first phase of the Small Business Recovery Program began on April the 8th when the City of Corpus Christi executed a contract with the LIFT Fund to establish a $2 million loan program for small businesses impacted by COVID-19. $1,700,000 were allocated for loans to be issued and $300,000 was for overhead. Next slide, please. The application process for Phase 1 of the Small Business Recovery Program began on April the 13th, and as of May the 14th, 72 loans totaling $1.4 million have been funded, with another 15 loans totaling $300,000 scheduled to be funded this week. And as a matter of fact, I believe they've already closed and been funded. And this will deplete the first tranche of funding for the program. Initially, we had stated that this program could fund 68 local businesses, but as it turns out, we have helped 87 small businesses here in Corpus Christi. And this is such good news, and it really shows our small businesses how we care for them. Next slide, please. This table shows a breakdown by sector of the loans that were issued. And as you can see, the service sector had the largest recipients of loans at 35. And these businesses include beauty shops, barber shops, nail salons, tire companies, janitorial services, and lawn care companies, to name a few. Next in line were the accommodation and food services that include restaurants. Retails were next at 9, and these included tire shops and auto sales shops. Professional technical services include several air conditioning companies and salons. The manufacturing line item included local breweries. Healthcare social services included chiropractors, physical therapists, and wellness facilities. Arts, entertainment, and recreation included a boxing club and an entertainment venue. Education included a barber school and learning centers here in town. Construction included an electric company. Transportation warehouse included a trucking company. Wholesale included a seafood market. Admin support included a notary. And the finance insurance included a finance company. Next slide, please. And this is just a graphical representation of a breakdown of the loans by sector. Next slide, please. So Phase 2 of the Small Business Recovery Program was approved on April the 21st by the City Council in the amount of $1 million, and $823,500 will go to loans and $176,500 for overhead. These funds can only be used after the funds in Phase 1 are depleted, and this has already occurred, so we're expecting these funds to begin to be utilized this week. The table on this slide is as of May 14th, which is last Thursday, and shows that the LIFT Fund had 30 applications in queue in the amount of $684,000. But I received an email right before this meeting started, and as of yesterday, we had 104 applications in queue, totaling $815,000. So if all of those applications are processed successfully, then that will pretty much deplete Phase 2. But we're anticipating within the next 2 weeks, Phase 2 should be completed. Next slide, please. Because of the success of this program, staff has requested from Type A consideration of a Phase 3 for this program in the amount of $500,000. And we had a Type A meeting yesterday, which this was discussed, and we will bring it for action at their June meeting. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anybody have any questions?
Quick question. You said, what did service, different businesses fall under service again? I'm so
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am. There's a bunch. This is just a few.
Yeah,
It was
just
beauty shops, barber shops, nail salons, tire companies, janitorial services, lawn care companies were a few. And I have a complete list in case you'd
Thank
like
you.
to see that. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a great story. They kind of had slow getting out of the station, but they've got their act together and go and helping a lot of people, so that's
Yes,
good.
sir. It is. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks.
Okay, and then Mayor, the final comment is Eddie's just going to run through the budget calendar, just a few slides and hit some of the highlights. We'll send this out via memo as well to the full council after today.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Eddie Houlihan with the Office of Management and Budget. I'm going to go over the FY21 budget calendar. This would be the fiscal year that begins on October 1, 2020 and ends on September 30th, 2021. Next, some of the major date for the budget adoption is June the 16th. The plan is to present and have council vote on the financial policies. On July the 28th will be the overview presentation of the 2021 operating and capital budgets, and then on September the 15th, adoption of the 2021 operating and capital budget. Similar to last year, we plan to have 4 budget workshops, each of these on a Thursday in August. First would be police, animal care, code enforcement, and fire. Next would be the streets, the bond program, infrastructure, solid waste, water utilities and gas. Parks and recreation, libraries, and health would be on August the 20th. And then lastly, the hotel occupancy tax, American Bank Center, Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the airport. Also similar to last year, we plan to have 5 community input sessions. The format of these is yet to be determined, but will most likely be some type of a tele-town hall format. 3 are scheduled for the first week there, August the 10th, which is a Monday, and then the 12th and 13th on a Wednesday and Thursday. And then the following week, again, August the 17th, it's a Monday, and August the 19th would be on a Wednesday. Quite a bit of information here on the tax rate. As most of you are aware, the Senate Bill 2 drastically changed the property tax law. It was passed by the legislature in 2019. It lowered the tax rate a taxing unit can adopt without voter approval, and requires a mandatory election if the adopted rate is above the new lowered rate. Previous to Senate Bill 2, city's rollback rate was a rate necessary to raise 8% more maintenance and operating tax revenue as the year before, and if the city exceeded that rollback rate, the voters had the right to petition to hold an election. Senate Bill 2 changed the terminology from a rollback rate to a voter approval rate and lowered the allowed increase from 8% to 3.5%. It requires the city to hold an automatic election if the city adopts a rate that exceeds the 3.5% voter approval rate. If an election would require us to have a budget calendar that moves the dates up about a month, the budget would need to be adopted on August the 11th. The calendar that we have assumes that we will not have an election. Now, we did get a preliminary number at the end of April from the appraisal district. The preliminary values were 2.33% above last year, but that includes new growth. Typically, they don't give us a new growth number, but in the last couple of days, they have provided us with a new growth number. And when you take the new growth out of that, the increase is only less than 1%, 0.62. The new growth was almost identical as it was in 2019. In 2019, it was $359 million. Currently, the number we just got a couple of days ago was $360 million in new growth. So I'll stand by for any questions you might have.
Can you turn your mic on, Mayor, please?
Your statement there, and I don't remember which, this budget does not Our calendar assumes that we will not have an election. So what you're saying is that the budget you're gonna come back is gonna be within the 3.5%.
It would be very unlikely for the roll to come back. It would have to more than double from the preliminary roll in order for us to be close to the 3.5%.
Okay, so
If we don't, and the council has already made us very well aware that there's no intent to increase the rate by the 2 cents for the streets this year.
right.
So if we don't do anything with the rate, the values would have to more than double in order for us to get close to the 3.5%.
Okay.
Can I just add to that, though, that the law also provided that if there was a disaster declared by the governor, then that legislation would be on hold, so to speak, for 2 years. And so that if the values did come in and if there was an appetite to go a little bit beyond 3.5%, we feel that there's an opportunity to do that because the calendar and the rules were suspended based on the writers of the legislation.
Well, that one's gonna end up in the Supreme Court, I can assure you, because the governor was already on record yesterday as saying no. And Benton Court is saying no, but disaster is disaster. He didn't specify a hurricane or a tornado. A disaster is a disaster. And so I think they're nitpicking. I think of course, they own the AG and they own everybody else, so they can get the rulings they want until they get to the courthouse. But words mean something, and declaration of a disaster suspends the rules is pretty clear.
Yeah. Yeah, we asked Miles, and he said, the governor doesn't decide on the law, the courts do, so.
Well, I know, but they're out, I mean, it was, I don't know which magazine it was yesterday, or somebody had a big article, I think I sent you a copy of it, that their position is local governments ought to be reducing taxes. Well, good for you, Governor. Lower state taxes, and we'll try to follow your lead. But anyway, all right, but that's a good goal, and I think it's good because people are, whether you got the opportunity to do it or not, I mean, under the circumstances, people don't need any additional expenses right now, so we need to be very sensitive to that. And we did the similar thing after Hurricane Harvey on that 2 cents for the streets that was previously approved, but we put it off because it,
Yeah.
So, all right, anybody else have any other questions?
Yes, Mayor, back in the conference room.
Yes, sir.
Real quick question. You have a presentation and vote on financial policies. Will we be having a workshop to discuss any updates or anything prior to that timeframe?
I think the plan is to bring all the council members one-on-one and discuss the financial policies with them, and if they have any issues, we would answer those.
Yeah, Councilman.
That's the question I had. Go ahead.
You'll get them well in advance of that date, the June 16 date. We'll give them to you, and then we'll schedule one-on-one briefings to see if there's any follow-up questions.
Right. There's some, I went through some extensive work on the financial policies in the last budget cycle. There are a couple of issues that I came across this year, so I want to kind of address those as well. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Thank you. Do we have any more updates on the 2019-2020 budget and the COVID impact?
Not for today. We didn't have any additional
Okay,
updates.
so when are we going to get that?
Yeah, we don't have any new revenue data. We did meet with my executive budget team this week to look at our spending. And Eddie and his team have done some real good weekly in-depth analysis of spending trends. And so we're keeping a close eye on that. Right now, we're kind of on the trajectory we thought we would be on.
Yeah.
So there's no cause to change course. Our next sales tax check is June.
Yes.
And that'll be a big one because that'll be the April sales volume. So we'll see what happens there. Brett Oding with the CVB is still doing a real good job doing weekly analysis of the HUT tax. And so we'll report probably in another couple of weeks. We'll be able to give you a bigger update. But next, let's see, this is our last council meeting until June 9th. So on June 9th, we'll probably give you a pretty good update then.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay.
Well, I did get, and I'm not real clear, but I got a call from Senator Hinojosa, and I don't know whether it's the state hot tax or the local hot tax. Do they send the check at the same time, or they send them differently?
State is quarterly, so
Well, then that's the one he's talking about. He said they did instruct them to start sending that on a monthly basis instead of a quarterly basis, so that'll speed up your cash flow a little bit. So that's good news, I
Sure.
guess. So we'll take everything we can get. In reference to talking about the impact of the coronavirus issue that we're dealing with, the state has, and to their credit, they're not required by federal law that the money that they got from the federal government to come down and help the state address the coronavirus, separate and apart from the cities and counties over 5 million population, no, 500,000 population, which is, I think there's 5 cities and 12 counties, I think, or something like that. Out of the 254 counties, I think 242 of us are below 500,000. So pretty much the majority of the ground of the state, not where the population is. But the Fed sent X number of dollars down, some of it directly to the counties and cities over 500,000, sent a lump sum to the state, and the state is encouraged but wasn't required to share that with the cities and counties under 500,000, but they have, and so we're grateful for that. But in order to get that, we really need to be able to identify. I think the managers started asking all department heads to identify any cost, associated whatsoever with the coronavirus response, to make sure we catalog that and all that. But any grants that we can get by department heads or anything else where we can scavenge your money to put against this will help us in our budgeting process, either through a reimbursement or being paid for by grants as opposed to budgets. So just let me encourage you and the staff members, and time is going to be of the essence. I think this is going to be coming pretty fast. And I was telling somebody the other day, they said this is May the 19th. I said, this has been going on for 2 months. It seems like it's been going on for 10 years. But this funding has to be in and cleared and spent all by the end of the year. And from what they're saying, some of this is going to drag out. So any documentation that we could get really could help us on our budget in terms of reimbursements and that sort of thing. So, but I think they've done a great job. And Chief, particularly in the first responder, both fire and police, that could have a significant impact on going out there and what you're doing and time and allocations. I think there are some separate grants, I think, that apply to first responders, don't they, in addition to what the state and them may be doing? But anyway, as long as we got all that, that would sure help us in the budget process if we could ever do that. So thank you very much. Anything else?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's it for
Thank you.
us today, Mayor.
All right. And that concludes your portion?
That concludes the city manager's, yes,
Right.
thank you.
We're going to have to tell Holly not to put city manager's comments in all caps next time. No, I'm just teasing. Anyway, normally we have public comment following the city manager's report if we have any. We do have, Ms. Huerta, 6 or 7 emails that were written for general public comment and nothing for agenda items. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Nothing for agenda items, and no public hearing items as well, just for your information.
Okay, so as I understand, these are the 6 or 7 that you've given us. We'll put them in for the record. And just want those that sent them in to know that we do have them. We got copies of them. And they were provided for the council, and we will read them. And since there were none of them specifically directed at agenda items, we won't require reading of that we will get the information.
Well, we read only items related to public hearings are read into the record. So.
Okay. All right. So we'll go to, there's no minutes. Ms. Huerta was out of town last week and did not get a chance to look at the minutes. No board and committee appointments. Consent agenda, anybody have any comments on consent agenda items 1 through 10? And let me get over here to my book that I got marked up. I think 1 through 10, the first 3 or 4 or 5, basically were last week's agenda items, correct? Yes. 7, 8, 9, and 10. Anybody, or any, on 1 through 10, anyone have any agenda items they want to pull on consent agenda, items 1 through 10?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to pull number 2 and number 3.
2 and 3, okay. Anybody else?
Number 7, just a question.
Number 7, just a question, all right. 2, 3, and 7. Anybody else? Entertain a motion then for approval of items 1, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Ms. Huerta, would you like to call the roll, please?
For passage of the consent agenda with the exceptions of 2, 3, and 7, Mayor McComb?
Aye.
Council members Molina,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Barrera, Garza,
Aye.
Guajardo,
Aye.
Hernandez,
Aye.
and Hunter.
Aye.
The consent agenda passes.
All right, Ms. Fernandez, I think you wanted item 2.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. And I had brought this up with our financial officer as well as the city manager in talking about how the capital improvement plan does not match this particular item. Now, the original one for this one was done on my very first day as a city councilman on January 8th, 2019. And the budgeting information didn't match any of the CIP. Well, the CIP wasn't changed during the last budget cycle. So the amount of money that's budgeted for this in the CIP, the current CIP, is $10,847,400. The original contract that was done in January of 2019 was for $12,950,000, which was over that budget. So we're still looking at this amount of $10,847,000. Now we have this change order where we're adding an additional $701,000, but there was no accounting for that $2.1 million. So question number 1, where's that $2.1 million coming from, and how are we accounting for it?
Good afternoon, sir. Kevin Norton, Director of Water Utilities. So with the CIP, it was really a timing issue, because I know that the department, we submitted as a placeholder $6 million for this fiscal year, but with the timing of the book being published, it didn't make it in there. So it'll be correct in the next fiscal year CIP book.
Yeah, Kevin, the question is the $2 million, so that the 10 to 12, the $2 million is from the operating budget, is that right?
$2 million
The difference in the current contract is $12 million.
Yes, sir.
And the budget document says it's a $10 million project, so where's the $2 million difference from?
It was part of the regular project that was awarded in January, sir. So the 12.9 million, yes, sir, it is. And it's coming from the revenue bonds. I think that was what had paid for this one. Give me a minute, please, sir.
Okay, Kevin, I don't
Yeah,
think
it's
you
revenue
understood
bonds.
what I was asking. I mean, and I'm not sure I understand why it wouldn't have been added. We're talking about a budget process that took place in August of 2019, and this was approved in January of 2019. So we're talking like 8, 9 months before the capital improvement plan budget was created. So I mean, just to understand that, and then if it came from the revenue bonds, that's not stated in the CIP. So we need to know exactly how that came about and which revenue bonds those are from.
Right, yes, sir. So the CIP book, though, yeah, the number is incorrect there. So it was either a human error, what we submitted didn't go in, or it was a timing issue. What we submitted didn't make it into the book for the program. So
Okay,
I'll research
Kevin,
that.
this
I'll
is
research
the
that and find out.
Second CIP, the budget item that was incorrect in the same amount of weeks. The last one was from last week was from Choke Canyon, the Choke Canyon Dam project. So this is the second one in a row where we have incorrect information in the CIP budget. Do you see where my concern is here?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, so if we can get, I know we're coming up on the new budget cycle. I think we need to be very careful in trying to get this information correct, because as a council, this is where we make our decisions from and where money's at. If we don't know where money's at, where it's being spent, how can we make a good judgment on whether or not the budget's correct? So if we can make very close, pay close attention to the CIP in this upcoming budget cycle. It might be something we want to get Kimberly Houston involved in, maybe do an audit. Just a suggestion there.
Yeah, Roger, sir. It'll be tightened up.
Okay, the second question, in terms of this budget amount, you had said you're taking a portion of this, of the $771,000 out of the professional services fund for water, which in the original budget was $485,000. In the amended budget, some was brought over to the amount of $623,000 in expenditures and encumbrances, equating about $183,000 of a total unencumbered amount of $439,000. What is it that you're not going to be doing that was budgeted for?
There was a couple of things that were put in really as placeholders in case they were needed. One was an update for the water conservation plan and also the drought contingency plan. Both of those were updated fairly recently in 2018, 2019. So again, those are put in just in case any updates needed to be made. So that's part of it. The other piece is that we have a general on-call services placeholder, and we don't anticipate doing that. Any work that we're going to be doing for the updates of those water conservation plan, the drought contingency plan, we're going to do it in-house, sir.
Okay, can you provide me with the actual list and numbers for those individual things? Because if you recall, during the budget cycle, I mentioned that there was an awful lot of money sitting in professional services, and I questioned whether or not that was the amount needed. But okay, we'll look at that going forward. The second part of this, you're getting money from the CIP fund, but that's the exact same fund that's in the CIP with the number E11068, and it's $431,000. Is that coming from the operational budget?
No, it's a couple of projects. So some of them were from project savings. We had utility savings on a couple of street projects. We had a maintenance building that was completed over at the ONS water treatment plant, and that one had some money left over on it. And then a couple of projects like the elevated storage tanks for the Flower Bluff and the Nueces Bay elevated storage tank. That construction's not going to be starting until later than what we were expecting. Those are going to, the construction contract's going to get awarded next fiscal year. So it's not really a savings, but it's I guess a deferral of what was in the program. And then also the aquifer storage recovery, the efforts to studying the aquifer storage recovery has stopped right now, so there's money left over on that, sir.
Okay, so I'm assuming this is all going to go into that CIP project plan in the next update, so we can see where the funding's coming from.
You're talking about regarding this Nueces River pump station, sir? Or just
Right,
the
I mean,
overall?
it's still going to be an active project in the next budget cycle, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I hope to see all those improvements. Now,
Yes, sir.
again, I just want to make sure for accuracy, so we know where the money's coming from and where it's going when we make these decisions. That way we don't have this kind of conversation in the future.
Roger, sir.
Okay. All right. With that, I make a motion to approve the agenda item number 2.
All right, there's a motion and a second on item number 2. Ms. Huerta, call the roll.
For passage of ordinance number 2 on its first reading, second reading, Mayor McComb,
Aye.
Council members Molina,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Smith, Barrera, Garza,
Aye.
Guajardo,
Aye.
Hernandez,
Aye.
and Hunter.
Aye.
The ordinance passes.
Okay, item number 3.
Mayor, I pulled this one because I intended to vote no for it. I don't know if any other council member is interested in voting no, but if I make a motion is to not approve.
All right, he wants to vote no. Is there a motion to approve? All right, got a motion. Is there a second to approve?
Second.
All right, we got a motion and second to approve. Would please call the roll and give Mr.
Okay, so
Hill an opportunity to vote no.
for passage of ordinance number 3 on its second reading, Mayor McComb,
Aye.
Council members Molina,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Barrera,
Aye.
Garza,
Aye.
Guajardo,
Aye.
Hernandez,
No.
and Hunter. Mr. Hunter? Mr. Hunter is not answering. We'll mark him absent. Thank you. The ordinance passes.
All right, that gets us through the consent agenda, and prior to the recess for lunch.
Item number 7, Mayor, was also pulled.
Number 7.
Oh, number 7, I'm sorry, I apologize. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question about, do we have something that says how many hours, or do we have anything that tracks hours as far as the usage of the equipment? I'm not questioning the purchase or who we decided to go with or any of that. I know it's got 9 years life. I'm just wondering, sometimes, I guess the viability of a piece of equipment is based on how many hours it's already used or been used on, and how much life it still has left. So that's the only question I've got. And that's mostly for asset management, Mr. Davis and his group.
Jim,
What's he asking?
how do you track the hours?
Yeah, Jim Davis, sir, Director of Asset Management. Hours are tracked on the hops meter on the machine and are periodically entered into the M5 system, which we use. The normal servicing interval is 250 hours. And we track that assiduously, especially with a machine like this, which is a complex machine with a lot of moving parts, and is extremely important to the operation of the gas department. It's just constantly being used. And for your information, the machine that's being replaced was very much worn out, and we're just glad to get this machine here.
All right, is the old machine still operational, or can we still use it when we have to take the load out for maintenance?
But the older machine's operating, but it's constantly being attended to for maintenance. We have to put it in for unscheduled maintenance on a regular basis.
Okay, move to approve.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and second on item number 7. Any other discussion? If not, Ms. Huerta, call the roll.
For passage of motion 7, Mayor McComb,
Aye.
Council members Molina,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Barrera,
Aye.
Garza,
Aye.
Guajardo,
Aye.
Hernandez,
Aye.
and Hunter.
Aye.
The motion passes.
All right, looking here on the agenda, that we've got an executive session, but it's listed, but we don't have any business in an executive session, so we're not going to have that, right?
Right, there's no executive session.
All right, and Mr. Ian Vasey is here with the Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Corporation. And so before we break for lunch, is yours a prolonged and profound presentation, or is it?
Mayor, council members, for the record, Ian Vasey. I'm never sure if it's profound. I can make it relatively to the point, if that's what you want.
All right.
Let's see, do we have I don't know if we can pull the presentation up here.
Oh, yeah, I may have pulled
Item number
on the people in the control room. Didn't think about that. You have a PowerPoint?
I do, but I can talk for a little bit while they pull it up. The first thing is the Economic Development Corporation. We switch our duties a little bit at times of emergency. So in this time for the last several months, we've switched into four key items of four big buckets of activity. The first is data gathering, so that folks like yourselves, the Port Commission, the county commissions, other folks like that can make decisions. So I'm going to talk about some of the survey data that we've been doing. So data gathering for the business community. We move into business retention and assistance programs, and you've talked a little bit about that. Our team was working very much with Constance and her team on the Lift Fund program and some of the others, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Actually, I don't need to talk about the results of it because Constance did that already. We synthesize.
You're up and running here on your PowerPoint. I don't know whether it shows up on your screen there or not.
Yeah, it just did. We synthesize federal programs, state programs, because sometimes it's written as clear as mud. And so we go through all of I'm one of the few people that's been through the 900 and something pages of the CARES Act, and we synthesize that into key bullet points. And then the last thing we do is we become a repository for critical business information. And let's see, do I have a next one? Let's see if we can figure this out. Oh, next slide. Oh, we're not doing it. Okay, the next slide. So here's some of the employment data, but I'm going to tell you right out, this is the rear view mirror. This is out of date. So, and again, it's a lagging indicator. So the latest numbers as of today are that in this MSA, we've had 24,567 folks cumulatively file for unemployment claims since May 2nd. That likely puts us in the range of about a 12, maybe 13% unemployment rate. Our rate is about 119 workers per 119 unemployment claims per 1,000 workers, which would put it at 12. But then there's some other things that I think are a little bit lagging indicators. So if we talk about 12% and ahead of the curve, I'm still watching very closely the oil and gas sector, which we are reliant on, and I think there's some lagging indicators in that. So I don't want to cheer anything just yet, but we're tracking it very closely with our friends at Workforce Solutions and Jim Lee. Let's go to the next slide. We've been very much hard at work, principally working remotely. We've just recently reopened the office, and essentially we never really had a gap in service because everything went online. And we implemented cuts in our non-essential and non-contractual services. So we essentially moved cut things like our engineering program. We froze a vacant position that we were recruiting for. We've cut our marketing, travel, trade shows, site engineering, client hosting. So I know I have it down here that it's $120,000 a month from $150,000 a month, but last month we hit $110,000. So we're not sure about where our revenues are going to become because we are in many cases a private sector funded organization as well. And that's something we're very concerned about and we're watching very closely. We're still in a decent financial position, strong financial position. Mike Culbertson, who's probably watching, would tell me. I'm just a very cautious budgeting person. So what we do is it's unknown what the impact will be on our private sector contributions for the year going forward. But we've taken the steps to be able to move into consolidating and being very cautious in what we spend money on. Next slide, please. Okay, so 95% of our efforts have been in business, 5% of our business attraction efforts have shifted into business retention, helping the companies that are here on the ground. There's really no indication of any project that's been canceled so far, but this could change with time. All of them are taking a little extra time. Construction continues on both Steel Dynamics and Gulf Coast Growth Ventures and Cheniere. And if you think about it, there's about, between those several projects, there's about 10 to 12,000 construction workers still working full speed ahead. So if you think about those projects had been ended, we wouldn't be in some of the positive conditions that we're already in. We've still got about 12 significant projects in active site selection, plus 11 others in lower phases. In fact, there's a press release going out today. If you remember when we talked about the Steel Dynamics project and you supplied the water and the contracts for that project, this week one of their subcontract projects. So Steel Dynamics is kind of the target store, if you will, for our steel shopping center. JM Steel just announced another project. So we're going to have probably 9 additional companies on that campus. So when we made the collective decision to go in and build that steel campus, and it talked about the water and the infrastructure and the impact of houses that it's going to have on the Cal Allen area as an example, we're going to see probably by the end of the day, Steel Dynamics may have 600 to 800 workers themselves, but when you add JM Steel and some of the others that are announcing, I think we're going to have 2,000 workers on that site commuting right up from the Cal Allen area and other points. So
Remind us the size, did you say that's 2,000 acres?
2,400.
2,400 acres. Pretty good sized piece of property.
It was. And we always talked about it because they only need about 700, 800 acres themselves. And we said, look, go big into this, and then there's going to be companies that fill in the gaps in between. So in a sense, you know how when you build an office park, you've got a big tenant, and then you end up with the pads that go in around it. So Steel Dynamics is essentially the big anchor tenant, and all the companies that are either suppliers or mainly customers of theirs. So the company JM Steel makes bolts. In fact, I pulled their numbers on it. It's kind of interesting. So they make steel products with a slitter, a laser cutter, press braking, construction materials, and they're going to make, one of their products is going to be 260,000 bolts a month that are going to come out of that. So, you know, additional products that come out of the steel mill, they're made into other things. This is one of the things that we're doing. So next slide, please. We're very happy with what Steel Dynamics is doing right now. It's really cool. So let's see, we've got 23 additional attraction projects. We talked about the $23 billion in CapEx. Again, some of these are gonna take some time to figure out, but nothing's really been canceled. We're still moving through, and we're talking with all of those companies that are looking at our area, talking to the senior managers. There's pieces that, you know, when world demand changes like this, it's a little bit weird, but we're still talking to them, and nothing's been canceled. So we've moved off some of our trade shows where we do our booth with the MRO and the steel show and some of the others, and we'll go to the next slide on it. One of the things we were going to do, next slide, okay, we postponed our Coastal Bend Opportunity Zone, and it's going to be a new date. But one of the things we actually did is we converted the group that was started around our opportunity zones to all of the economic development practitioners from Victoria to Kingsville, inland to Jim Wells County. They've kind of coalesced around our group. So one of the things we do is a weekly call with all of those folks to provide them accurate information to serve their communities as well as the entire region. And one of the things we're doing is we're doing surveys. We've created a synchronous national work group to do the COVID surveys, and you've seen some of those surveys. I know a number of folks I've talked to about those, and so we've transitioned this group, and we've had everybody from the special assistant to the president from the White House on this call. We've had the governor's head of economic development, the Texas Secretary of State, the president of the IADC Council, talking about it. So it's a number of folks that are coming together on it. And what you found is essentially this group that kind of coalesced around the CCREDC, because most of those small economic development groups don't have a lot of resources. They're a 1 or 2 person shop. They don't have a lot of budget. They don't have a lot of the technical kind of things that we do. And we're a very technical driven organization. So we're doing that information. So it's covering the entire region. Let's see, next slide. We've been touching businesses, talking to those folks, talking to those senior leaders. Again, we worked with the city of Corpus Christi to create that small business loan program Constance talked about. That's a very successful program. In fact, I've been talking to some of the folks that got it, and one of my staff, it wasn't me that took the call, but one of my staff got a call from somebody who was almost in tears with joy that they got this $25,000 loan, interest-free loan, to be able to save their business. And Mayor, I told you who it was. I'm not going to say their name and embarrass them in public, if you remember when you and I were talking a little while ago. So, you know, a restaurant in town got something and saved their business. So that's really good. It's my daughter's favorite restaurant. So just as it happens. Anyway, let's see. So we've seen all of those. We're recommending, and we would second Constance's recommendation, the staff's recommendation, for the third tranche, which would be another $500,000 towards that program. So next slide. We've done two surveys. The first of which, and this is the slide here, is just the first of those. So we had 380 completed responses. The second, that was done on, I want to tell you when it was. That was done, I think it was March 30th. That survey was released. And then there was a second survey, which we did on April 20th. We released that survey. That had 927 responses. So again, we've been talking to all the business leaders, and when you guys asked for questions, and the White House asked for it, the governor's asked for it, they want data. They don't want supposition. They don't want anecdotal things. We've been able to supply them the hard data of what these business leaders and CEOs in across the coastal bend are saying. And so in the first survey, 40% of companies were essentially shut down, which with 60% of open businesses were operating at 80% capacity. That was the first survey. Second survey went to a 65% capacity, and the typical business revenue was losing about 50% of their revenue. What I'm going to tell you is that the next survey that we're going to see is probably going to be the week after Memorial Day. And Jim Lee and I have been kind of going back and forwards, and we agree on this one, is that we think that we hit the bottom of the market at some point during the second 2 weeks of between the second and third week of April. And we're starting to see those positive economic indicators coming up. And what Peter talked about was that the April sales tax numbers are probably going to be your low point, and we're starting to recover from that. So we'll start see that. So we're in the climb out. Next slide. Again, you've got the details from our survey that we do with Jim Lee and his team. So we're up to our ears in all of those. I don't need to get into the details. You've all seen those things before, but we can talk about keep going to the next slide. I want to be sensitive to people's time here for a second. So one of the things we do is we measure where the operating capacity, both in the surveys and in the data that we collect. We're watching that oil impact. If you look at that, we're starting to see the oil impact likely down about 50%. And the reason for that, before we started this, oil global demand was about 100 million barrels a day. It dropped to a low of about 70 million barrels a day, so about 30% off that. It's starting to recover into the 80s as people start coming back to work and driving again. The deal between the Saudis and the Russians, it was unfortunate. The Saudis and the Russians just went at each other over, and to be honest, is because the Russians never actually cut their production when they say they're going to do it. So they start to see we're going to start to see oil storage and manufacturing and related extraction. We're going to start to see that recovery, but potentially in our market, a third of jobs are directly or indirectly related to the oil and gas manufacturing and processing. And we're going to see U.S. production somewhere from about 12.8 million barrels at the peak down to about 9.6. And Sean and his team at the port and our team have been really making some projections and researching this very closely, but we're guessing that somewhere down in the Permian, it's going to be Permian and Eagle Ford down about 30%. Next slide. One of the things we did, and I know Eddie was just up here, we built a very complex model of how we're going to make budget projections. We talked about the things that different sectors getting hit at different times. So as an example, retail gets hit very quickly with the shutdown, but once things reopen, they start coming back. Now, do they come back to 100%? Probably not if we've got a higher than average unemployment rate, because people, if you don't have a job, you're not going to be spending money going out to eat and things like that. But at the same time, so that's the retail piece and the restaurant piece. What you're seeing is the construction piece, essential industry, didn't get hit very much at all in the first couple of weeks. But what we're going to see is that's going to be a lagging indicator. So end of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, if you're swinging hammers on a project right now, you're going to finish the project. But if you're going to start a project in, say, October, November, you're making the decision today. Those are the decisions that are going to probably get pushed off. So we're going to start, and we modeled all of that out. And I know that, is Eddie still there? Eddie and I have spent weekends of going back and forwards on this one. And I had to relearn a lot of things in Excel spreadsheets. But what I was going to tell you is our projection for the first month with March was we were projecting down 15%. It turned out to be down 14%. So I don't think we were off. Is that right, Eddie? That's right. I don't think it was off that much. So we're trying to give you as accurate projections by sector. So we broke it down to about 13 sectors where we knew what the revenues were going to look like. So you're starting to see some of that data. And again, we talk about very technical things. Go to the next slide, and I'm going to start wrapping up and getting out of here so everyone can have lunch. You'll see our geographic dispersion of all the folks on our surveys. I think the first one was the Survey 1, Survey 2. We're starting to see everybody from Victoria down to Kingsville, and I think just south of Kingsville, coming around our little flag and participating in the economic development activities. And next slide after that. And you can see all this data online. And CCRADC has become, for the folks at home, CCRADC has become the repository for business data, economic data, and things like that. And so it's kind of a landing page for businesses, and where you can, even a couple of days ago, where the federal government released the new PPP application, so you can turn that loan into a grant. We've got all that information up there and an explanation of what that is as well. So what we're doing is, we switched online very quickly as well. I don't think I need to go through the rest of the slides, but what I'm telling you is we replaced our Kiko's breakfast that, where we get about 75, 80 people come in talking about business climate and economic indicators. We switched it online. We had 84 people at the last one. So the unfortunate thing is when you do those dial-ins from home, you don't get their Kiko's Good Tacos, but it's that information is the information that we're putting out is pretty good. So anyway, with that, I'd leave you with, I think we've hit the bottom. We're starting to move out, and we're starting to see that road to recovery, and things are pretty optimistic, actually, what we're starting to see right now.
All right, great. Anybody have any comments? We appreciate your flexibility to jump it up instead of waiting until the end of the meeting, because we don't have any Kiko's Tacos back there for lunch, or we'd invite you to stay for lunch.
Thank you, Mayor.
But just interestingly enough, that West Texas Intermediary right now is at 32.13. That's a complete turnaround from the minus 35 it was a month ago. And then I did get a text, just from a friend, says, lots more traffic on 37, burning gas. Yes.
I'll tell you, the airline industry is one of the things that's a bit of a problem. I mean, they're down about 90%, and so the people that make airline jet fuel, Jet A, that's going to be down for a while. But the diesel never really took that big a hit, and automobile gasoline, starting to come back very quickly. And I met with Brett and we talked at a long length about the hotel industry, and it's very optimistic for the summer because we're not very much of I hate with Fred sitting in the background, we're not much of a fly-in market, we're a drive-in market. So all the folks that are going to want to spend the summers getting out of town and taking their kids somewhere, not going to want to get on a plane, they're going to get in their cars and drive, and that's optimistic for us.
And I think was it last week we were discussing about, the hotel motel tax and advertising. I don't think we're going to have to advertise much once people get loose. I mean, you look at your weekends that we've had so far, they know we're here. They're chomping at the bit to get here. So that's good. But anyway, thank you for your report.
Thanks, man.
You're doing a great job, and I think we're optimistic, and our future's bright if we behave ourselves. All right, well, and that be the case, then let's, why don't we take our break? Did you order lunch? Is it 12 o'clock or 1:30 or what do we want to do?
It's at 1:30.
1:30? Oh, okay. I was thinking it was 1 o'clock you're trying to get. Well, in that case, then let's go to item number 11, zoning case 0320-02, Juan Romero, District 5, property near Slough Road from Farm Rural District to Single Family RS, Single Family. I don't know whether they got dyslexia or what the problem is with this thing. But
No
anyway,
problem. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Al Raymond, Director
okay.
of Development Services. The case before you is to rezone the property located at 7614 Slaw Road from FR Farm Rural District to RS6 Single Family District 6. The purpose is to allow for single family home to gain access to public utilities. The applicant is Juan Romero. Next slide, please. The property is located along the north side of Slaw Road, east of Rodfield Road, west of Amethyst Drive. The property primarily fronts Slaw Road, which is designated as a C1 minor collector. To the north and south are single-family residential subdivisions zoned RS6 and RS 4.5 respectively. To the east and west are remaining large tracts of single-family residences zoned FR Farm Rural District. The property is 0.527 acres in size, and it is not platted. The subject property consists of vacant land and has remained undeveloped since annexation in 1995. The rezoning of this property and ultimate platting will bring the property into conformity with the surrounding properties and making it eligible to receive access to public utilities. Next slide, please. The proposed rezoning to RS6, single family 6 district is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. It's compatible with the surrounding properties and it does not pose a negative impact to the general area. Next slide, please. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval of RS6 Single Family District 6, and we stand by for any questions.
All right, anybody have any questions on item number 11, the zoning case?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you. Mr. Raymond, you said they need the zoning change to get utilities, but we do provide utilities for farm rural, correct?
We do. However, we also require the land that we're providing utilities to the property to be platted as well.
Okay, so it's really the fact that it's an unplatted piece of property that it doesn't have utilities, not the zoning.
Primarily, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, but they have to go to the R6 zoning to meet the density because that you can't plat it under farm rural. Okay.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Molina?
Thank you. Just would like some clarification. There was a comment that was returned in opposition on the public hearing notice form, and the comment states that what the comment states is that, and I'm reading here, from my understanding, it is going to be apartments added, and I don't want two-story buildings looking into my backyard. But that's not what's going to be built here, is that correct?
That's correct. Apartments can't, I think the comment was really focusing on, kind of multifamily, and apartments can't go in, as you know, into R6. So I don't think this resident has anything to worry about in that regard.
That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else in the conference room Michael?
Move to approve.
Well, can we open and close the public hearing, Mayor?
We can, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll open the public hearing. We didn't have any comments submitted, correct?
No.
Second.
All right, we got a second. Can we have a motion to close the public hearing? You made a motion to close the public hearing, didn't you, Roland? Okay. All right. So we got a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, the public hearing is closed. Now I'll entertain a motion for the passage of item number 11.
Yeah, Michael made a motion.
So moved.
All right, yeah. So, Ms. Worth, if you'll
Ready?
call the roll on item 11.
Yes, sir. So for passage of ordinance 11 on its first reading, Mayor McComb,
Aye.
Councilmembers Molina,
Aye.
Roy,
Let's go to item 12, sir. Sorry.
Hold on.
Roy,
Aye.
Smith. Aye. Barrera. Aye. Garza.
Aye.
Guajardo. Hernandez.
Aye.
And Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, the ordinance passes.
All right, the next case is zoning case number 0320, Mustagashi Investment Trust. Mr. Raymond?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. The case before you is to rezone the property located at 14206 Leos Court from CN1 Neighborhood Commercial District to RS6 Single Family 6 District. The purpose is to allow for the construction of single-family homes. The applicant is Matsagati Investment Trust, represented by Urban Engineering. Next slide, please. The property is located along Leos Court, west of County Road 69, south of Northwest Boulevard. The property primarily fronts along Leos Court, which is designated as a local residential street. To the north is the Dialysis Clinic zoned CG2 General Commercial District. To the south and the east are single-family residential subdivisions zoned RS6 and RS10 respectively. To the west is a mini storage business zoned CG2 General Commercial District. The property is 3.165 acres in size, and it is platted. The subject property consists of vacant land and has remained undeveloped since annexation in 1995. Next slide, please. The proposed rezoning to RS6, Single Family District 6, is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. It is compatible with the surrounding properties, and it does not have a negative impact on the general area. Next slide, please. The Planning Commission and staff recommend approval of RS6, Single Family 6 District, and we stand by for any questions.
All right, we've had the presentation, and we will open the public hearing. Is that right, Ms. Huerta?
Yes.
Did we have any comments written for the public hearing?
No.
Anybody have any comment on the council? Hearing none. Close the public hearing. Entertain a motion for the passage of item number 12. There's a motion and a second. Ms. Huerta, if you'll call the roll on item 12.
For passage of ordinance 12 on its first reading, Mayor McComb.
Aye.
Council members Molina. Roy.
For voting.
Smith. Smith.
Aye.
Barrera.
Aye.
Garza.
Aye.
Guajardo.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
And Hunter.
Aye.
And for the record, Mr. Molina, you voted aye? Is that
Yes,
correct?
I voted aye while I was in the back.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the ordinance passes.
Okay, item number 13, it requires a public hearing. It's an ordinance authorizing a transfer of $590,000 from the sanitary sewer collection line trust fund for $310,000 from the water distribution main trust fund and $375,000 from the water arterial transmission and grid main trust fund to the sanitary sewer trunk main trust fund to meet the funding obligations of the wastewater force main and lift station.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this ordinance is to authorize, as you said, the transfer of funds from the collection line trust, the distribution main trust, the grid main trust, all of that which we need to go to the sanitary sewer trunk main trust in order to fund a council-approved reimbursement agreement authorized the ordinance of 032024 on February 18th, 2020. It was determined recently that the transfer of these additional funds to the sanitary sewer trunk main was required to meet the financial obligations that we are committed to with the above referenced ordinance. As you had said, Mayor, next slide, please. As you see here, what you see before you displays the trust fund balances as we get this every month from finance. So and when we report to this body, in other words, when we bring a reimbursement agreement to this body, we are basically utilizing the balances from the previous month because it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get the most current balance. So for example, if we were bringing an item in December 2019, we'd be looking at a November balance. If we're bringing an item in January 2020, we'd be looking at a December 2019 balance. So for example, we brought before you the Tomaz Development reimbursement agreement in February, and we were looking at the January balance. And as you can see there, it was a nice, healthy balance. And so we reported it to you. We did the numbers, and we had the ordinance passed. But once finance reconciled, we realized we needed to move monies around so that we could support the council-approved agreement. Next slide, please. So as the mayor said initially, we are proposing with this ordinance to transfer $375,000 from the Water Arterial Transmission and Grid Main Trust. We're proposing to transfer $310,000 from the Water Distribution Main Trust, and we're proposing to transfer $590,000 from the Sanitary Sewer Collection Line Trust, moving all of that to the Sanitary Sewer Trunk Main Trust, which is approximately $1.2 million short, meeting the obligation that we previously approved. And once we relocate these funds, it will certainly reconcile that and make the fund whole so that we can honor the obligation we had previously approved. Next slide, please. Of course, staff is recommending approval of this request. It's in accordance with the UDC section 8.5.1 Water Trust Fund and 8.5.2 Wastewater Trust Fund. We stand by for any questions, which I'm sure there are probably a lot.
All right. And this says the council may after public hearing, so I guess we open the public hearing. Open public hearing on item 13 to move some funds around. Any comment? Any comment
sir.
received?
No.
Any comment from the council? Mr. Smith?
Thank you. Today, we did the final approval on about $140,000. Is that in these estimates with it? So we have about $280,000 in total in all of our trust funds. I'm just, that approval we did today, has that already been taken out?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure what he's. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't understand the question. I apologize.
Okay, so today we approved another $140,000 coming out of the trust funds, and my question is that reflected in these numbers that we have today? So we have approximately $280,000 in total available balances, and is that $140,000 already taken out of it, or is that a future obligation we haven't deducted?
I think you're referring to the Abara.
Yeah.
Presentation, which was one of the first ones, right? That money's already accounted for. All you approved is $11,000 more. Okay. Basically.
Okay, and so is that 11,000 taken out?
Yes, sir. It's accounted in these numbers.
Okay,
yes.
Great. So the two, what we're showing in those available balances after we approve that truly is available. We don't have other
That's correct. As of now, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other comment?
Yes, Mayor, back in the.
Okay, go ahead.
On January, your available balance was 1.6 million, and then February, the 235,000. What was the expense that dropped that to 235,000?
Pipeline, I think that $900,000 IGA.
Councilman Hernandez, this is Alma with Finance. So this was in the middle of CAFR, and part of our process, when we go through CAFR, we have to go and make sure we're reconciling all our funds, all of the balances are correct. So when we finished our part of CAFR for these funds, the accountant went and updated that amount. So that amount changed from the prior months because 2019 we had already accounted for 2019, which was 1.7 million that had been deducted, but we had not gone to update that balance. Now that has, that brought our attention, and we thought, oh wow, that's a weakness we need to fix. So, but we never had this problem before because there was not this much activity in these funds before. So normally we go through CAFR. Once we finish CAFR, we go and update our balances. And that always worked in the past because there wasn't much activity. However, now there's a lot more activity and we need to update those balances immediately. So that's the process now.
Okay, that didn't quite answer my question. What was the activity that caused the draining of this of this fund?
It was 1.7 million. Do you have, it's.
Incorrect beginning balance from some activity.
It's kind of a long-winded answer, so you guys can do it.
Okay. The 1.7 million was all of the activity for the prior year. That's it wasn't that there was anything new. It was a new beginning balance that we needed to update.
This is Heather Hurlbert, the Director of Finance. It was a human error, basically. There was an incorrect beginning balance that was used in the reconciliation. That was a carryover from the prior financial year end. And so there was not that it was $1 million that was spent. It was just that the incorrect beginning balance was used on the reconciliation, making the fund appear to have more money in it than it did. When we finalized the CAFR, those beginning balances were replaced with the current year's beginning balances. That's when the error was, when it came to light. And so we are having to correct that as a result of that.
Okay, so what should have been the beginning balance?
Let me get that. It's 362,000. 362,035 and 67 cents.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at here was the IGA main truck coming from this fund?
Yes.
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 So that was $900,000, is that correct?
Approximately, yes, sir.
Okay, so the reason why this fund is so low is because we spent a lot of money on the IGA project, is that correct?
That's one way of looking at it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other question? Comment? Any other comment?
I have a comment. I think the reason the fund balance is low is we spent a lot of money on a lot of different things. So, singling out one particular project, we spent, I think, $3 or $4 million running across the OSO and a number of projects. So I can't say any one particular project caused this fund balance to be low. The reason this fund balance is low is we have a lot going on in this city and all districts of this city that are taking money out of that fund.
That's a great point, Councilman. We've done force mains, lift stations, several of them, and not including the line for the grocery store. I mean, it's just multiple activities that are going on, and it's really just tapping the fund. That's really the result of it.
I mean, it's a pretty simple economical truth that if you have a pot of money and you spend it, it goes down, right? I'm not real smart, but that's kind of the way it worked in my bank account. If you wake up one morning, you got a lot of money and you go spend it and then it's all gone. And then you scratch your head, what did I spend the money on? Well, if you don't replenish it, you got to go back. So anyway, all right, any other comment to Ms. Wahardo?
Just to follow up, I agree, and I think it could be very well be a little, or is a little unfair to say that it was, one project. And I'd also like to remind everyone, if we are looking at a project heavy area, it's the south side and the growth that has taken place over there. And then, there goes the money. So anyway, I think all of this is good. As we heard earlier from Mr. Houlihan, in the end, it's growth, and those are dollars. So anyway, thank you for the presentation, Al. Oh.
Any other questions, comments on item number 13? I need to close the public hearing.
I think I may have struck a nerve here.
Which one? We'll close the public comment period. Entertain a motion on item 13.
For passage of ordinance 13, oh, I'm sorry, Mary. Whoops, I got ahead of myself. Apologize. Motion first.
Is there a motion? Second? I'll second it. Ms. call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. For passage of ordinance number 13 on its first reading, Mayor McComb?
Aye.
Councilmembers Molina,
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Barrera?
Aye.
Garza?
Aye.
Guajardo?
Aye.
Hernandez?
I don't think it's the right way of doing it, but we need to pay our obligations. Aye.
And Hunter? Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry,
Ordinance
I have
passes.
2 on buttons for my microphone.
No worries.
All right, regular agenda, then not any. Reading first ordinance is item 14 through 17. Has anybody got any questions they need? It's about abandoning a utility easement, selling 30 properties for tax delinquencies, and if I'm reading this right, the properties have basically been sold, and they're just getting authorization to close the deal? They've already been sold at the courthouse steps. Or they made a bid to buy the properties at the posted? Okay, so it's not gonna be auctioned off? Or they've gone through auction and they're striking them off now for what they can get? Is that kind of the deal? Okay. So we end up ultimately gonna net about $29,000 to the city and $55,000 for mowing and maintenance and demolition and all that. And that property goes back on the tax roll. Well, it's never left the tax roll, but at least it's got a new name on it that potentially can pay the bill, right? Okay. And the county gets some money and different school districts get some, so that's a good item. Number 16 is adding to Mr. Smith. We're doubling the size of his city council district.
Doubling my pay?
Doubling his pay and getting 0 new constituents. So that's a pretty good deal. No boat expense allowed to cross the bay to go over to your vacant property, Mr. Smith.
I'll swim it.
And, well, you can walk across some of it, or yeah. And then item number 17 is making some adjustments within this Public Works to do some street projects, water and stormwater and this sort of thing. Is that correct? And then this really is a good project. I believe it's the one I was looking at that's going to accelerate some of our residential street programs up to get caught up, so to speak.
That's right. Yeah, this is actually the work plan for 2020. So it approves the list of those arterial and collector streets. And that plan is in motion where we're going to be able to get a lot of the 19 work and the 20 work done by the end of this calendar year.
All right, so
Yes,
that's
sir.
pretty exciting.
It is, yeah. So neighbors are already seeing it in the community, and we have a video that we're working on to bring it to council's attention. We just want to make sure the AV system works well enough to show it to you, but because a lot of work over the past 2 months has been happening in the community, in our streets and in our park system. We just haven't had a chance to see it as much because we're not out so much, but.
All right.
So this is a good example of that.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion on approval of items 14 through 7. Huh? All right, comment, Ms. Wartho?
On item 15, which is the resale. So, I think we've had this conversation for a long time now in regards to some of these properties that cost us so much to maintain. And I wanted to bring something to light. First of all, I called Paul Chapa on this just to get some clarification on some things. And I asked him if he could send us, which we've talked about before, the process of how these properties finally get to them and to the courthouse steps. And so there's apparently 3 different categories that a property would fall under. So he's going to send that to us. But what's of even more importance is a lot of these properties, Peter, are properties that like the ones we're seeing are going to be resold, but there are many that aren't for whatever reason, vacant lots and lots with a home on them that, you know, weren't paid or whatever the situation. Could we look at working, because of course it's not just us, it's the county, CCISD and the city, but looking at refurbishing, if you will, these properties to affordable housing developer, you know, people that work with affordable housing, and there are different people that work on different levels of affordable housing, but I know they're constantly looking for properties. And so the reason I asked for the process of how this takes place is because it takes forever. There's a home on Norfolk that has been there literally 5 years, and that's going up on the court steps August, whatever, whenever they do it in August. But it has taken, I don't know how many times I've called, and Councilman Smith, but it's happening finally, but there's something, whatever the process is, which is why I asked for it, we really need to understand, because in the meantime, we're paying so much money in maintaining them, basically. Boarding up, you know, mowing lawns. I mean, it's just ridiculous. For people that don't even exist, in Norfolk's case, they're dead. And we don't, you know, it's a matter of heirs and all the, and craziness happens during this time. But anyway, like I said, my point here is twofold. One, what I just said, and the other was prior to what I mentioned, and that's, can we look at these properties to see, there's a whole bunch on this list. What we're seeing are just the resaleable ones. There's a whole lot of other ones that didn't get sold. So can we look at working with some of the people that work on affordable housing to see what we can make out of these properties to get rid of them with them?
Yes, we can do that, Councilwoman. One of the things that has become apparent is we don't have a real estate position in the city. Yeah, but I've asked Charles, between him and Jeff Edmonds, to advertise a position. We've been using a former employee who's a contract employee now, but we need a full-time dedicated real estate person.
To look at all this.
Yeah, to be the point person. So that's in motion. So we'll get you, I'll put together some report that'll help us understand timeline, so we can see when that position will be filled and when we can advance some of this.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment on that.
Okay.
It's the peanut gallery back here. One of the things that I want to caution, and I understand, Councilmember, part of what you're saying is that we have to be a little bit careful in that process, because if the city is involved in terms of taking over those properties and rehabbing those properties, we don't need homeowners coming back and saying that we acted, quickly on their matter or their issue or their estate's issue because we wanted to take that property and then repurpose it.
No,
So
and
I think that that's a great idea. I just think we have to look at the steps that it takes and understand those steps and make sure that we've exhausted every avenue before we go into that, because somebody could come back. It's similar to banks. When a bank takes a foreclosure or repossession, we make sure that home cannot be, any employee or anybody associated with the bank can't have access to that, because somebody says, okay, well, you forced your foreclosure or you accelerated your foreclosure because you wanted to allow that property to be of use for another purpose. Just a suggestion.
yes, and Councilman Roy, I didn't mean for us to keep them. I mean for us to sell them or, deed them, whatever the best case is, which are some of the things we've done before with some of these developers that are looking for these type of properties.
And again, if we sell them and whatever we do, we just have to make sure that we follow that process so that we don't expose ourselves. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, yes.
All right. We need a motion on those items, or you already done that?
Want to do them all at once for 14, for passage of 14 through 17?
Yes, ma'am. And there's a motion.
Is there one? May
Move
we
to
have a
approve.
motion?
There's a motion to approve? Second. All right, there's a motion second, 14 through 17. Call the roll.
Yes, sir. So for passage of 14 through 17, Mayor McComb?
Aye.
Council members Molina?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Barrera?
Aye.
Garza?
Aye.
Guajardo?
Aye.
Hernandez?
Aye.
And Hunter?
Aye.
Okay, the ordinance is passed.
All right, we've got the briefing item 18, we've got that done. There's no executive session. Anybody have anything to identify for council future agenda items? If not, we will stand adjourned until June the
9th.
June the 9th. Have a very safe Memorial Day weekend. And
We'll see you Saturday. Yeah. And shoes, don't.
Don't sleep until 11, Mayor.
we're adjourned.